This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and you're tuned in to the Roger Stone Show, where we're talking about, well, what else? Politics. Joining me now, Tyler Nixon, attorney at law, longtime political activist, writer, confidant and friend of mine who's represented me personally as an attorney, extraordinarily knowledgeable about both the law and politics and the media and how it operates it. And he joins us now on the Roger Stone Show. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Roger, it's great to be with you, and I just want to congratulate you on this excellent show that you've developed. Just only a couple hours a week, but it is absolutely packed with some of the best political analysis and guests that you'll find anywhere on radio.
Well, we're very proud of it. President Donald Trump was on our maiden show, which I'm incredibly proud of. We've had Congressman Byron Donalds, we've had Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, we've had Lee Greenwood. It's really been a great experience, and I love doing it. Put a lot of work into it to try to look at the news and see those things that aren't getting the kind of attention I think they deserve. And even though I'm a partisan, we try to present things in a very fair-minded way. I appreciate your coming on today. Let's kind of start. You worked in the Chancery Court in Delaware as an attorney. I'm shocked by this new decision, which essentially voids the compensation that Elon Musk is getting from his various companies. I mean, how can this be?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be on with you. I want to say that. And I clerked for the Delaware Chancery Court just out of law school. I wasn't yet admitted to the bar, and I'm not currently a licensed Delaware attorney, so I'm just going to be speaking generally about what I see coming out of the Chancery Court, and just based on my experience, which is that what happens with in the Delaware Chancery Court that you get are what are called derivative actions, and these are shareholder lawsuits that are brought typically not by actual shareholders, but by law firms that specialize in this. And typically the ones who make the most money on any of these lawsuits are the lawyers. But what they do is they'll take a representative plaintiff, and in this case, in Musk's being sued over his compensation package, the actual plaintiff only held 9 shares of Tesla, which is, I think, worth maybe $1,700 versus, how many hundreds or tens of millions of shares are actually out there. And it's essentially a class action. That's what it is the representative plaintiff is certified as a class plaintiff who sues on behalf of all the shareholders of the company, usually suing management for some sort of breach of fiduciary duty or some sort of something that went on that is abusive or injurious to the larger shareholders. And this is, in public corporations. Well, in this case, Elon Musk had set up a compensation package that was based on performance and based on not only performance targets, like he has to fulfill certain actual things like developing and getting a car to market, as well as the actual value of the company, the float. And he blew those away. And this was promulgated in 2018. So in the past 6 years, he took the company from something like a $50 billion company value to almost $650 billion. And in some cases met the performance targets ahead of what they were supposed to, what his targets were in order for the shares to vest. And it was done in tranches, so it's like $50 billion at a time worth of shares that he would be vested, would vest in him in the company, if he meets these targets. And clearly he did, and he blew them away. So all the shareholders benefited from this in the company as he grew the company over the last 6 years, and has done an amazing job, frankly, and is considered a visionary by even his detractors. And while he's doing this, he's also running, of course, SpaceX and now Twitter on top of that. So what these shareholders said was that this was an excessively huge compensation package, an unprecedented, historically large, just giveaway to the primary, the main shareholder, as well as the CEO or whatever he holds in terms of a management position or the top management position in the company. And the way Delaware reviews it is they take there's a standard, basically. In most cases, you have what's called the business judgment rule, where judgment is given, the deference is given to the judgment of the board of directors and or the management, as the case may be, in making these decisions, unless there can be shown to be some sort of interest in the transaction involved on the part of the people who are making the decision. Now, that's not the case here, and if that happens, then it goes to they have three levels. First is business judgment, then heightened scrutiny, and the most strict is called entire fairness. And in the entire fairness case, it's going to be evaluated in terms of, is this entirely fair in every respect to the shareholders? And in this case, the judge in Delaware, who is the actual chancellor, who normally, Delaware is known for decisions which, really, frankly, smartly, I should say, give deference to boards of directors and to management of companies, because we don't want judges meddling, frankly, in the business judgments and decisions of these companies. These are huge. You're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, worth of value and equity, and you can't have judges just second guessing and reversing and overruling these decisions. So they have established these standards, and typically they would allow for, especially in the case of this deal, where the shareholders of the company by a 73% vote ratified and affirmed this compensation package. But of course, you have attorneys out there, entire law firms that are built on finding such as little picayune things, for example, in a proxy statement or disclosure that was either missing or was slightly erroneous, and saying, well, this was one that was put past the shareholders based on bad information. And that's essentially what they did here, in addition to saying that Musk is a controller of the company. He essentially is not merely just he's not independent of the board. He somehow, in their minds, controls the board. And this judge really, it's a very dense opinion, and it's just way too filled with. I think whoever is writing this, I get the sense that they really wanted to showcase themselves on the national and international stage by writing this opinion. So it's got a lot of sort of hokey, irrelevancies in the way it's written. And the language of it seems to me someone's trying to showcase themselves, in addition to thinking that they're striking a blow against the big bad billionaire, as the case may be. And in Musk's case, they essentially said he controls the board of, or he is a controlling shareholder and manager, and that the board itself is not independent of him because it simply works closely with him. And it cited a number of things that it didn't disclose. They didn't disclose about these, any close relationships he has with board members in the proxy statement when they voted on it. And essentially they're using that, as well as the fact that he's a controller, to apply the entire fairness standard, which is a very strict standard, which shows that it essentially says you have to it's essentially allowing the court to substitute their judgment as to what is fair in terms of the shareholders, who, again, the shareholders benefited from this from Musk's stewardship of the company to the tunes of literally going from like a $50 billion to a $650 billion company. So they all benefited, but they in close judgment calls like this, a judge can decide, well, this is too much. This is entirely way beyond what any person should have. Back to the sort of thinking they're being populist, thinking they're being sort of representing the little people, versus the excessive executive compensations that we see, and have gone ahead and said that this was not fair, that this was excessive beyond belief. But you read the opinion at the outset. It says, should the question is posed, should the richest man in the world, is this too much? And when you get into questions like that, the subjective questions as to how much is too much or how much is enough, you've gone off the rails and into the realm of, these people are substituting their judgments. And then, when you're dealing with a state that is, let's face it, I mean, Elon Musk has not been exactly well received by the Biden administration. Now, this, Delaware is pretty much a thoroughly just infested blue state in terms of it's run by Democrats completely. There's an entire patronage hierarchy there, and it's been taken over entirely to where Republicans are almost irrelevant now. You're in a sort of a Rhode Island or a Connecticut situation, unfortunately, whereas we once had balance in the state with Senator Bill Roth, Mike Castle, and others. Now it's just completely a Democrat backwater, and unfortunately it's been degenerating the state for a couple decades or more now, and now it's reached the Chancery Court, in my opinion, where this chancellor, who is worked for the Community Legal Aid Society, is not necessarily someone with a corporate law background or any sort of business acumen or experience or background that I've seen or been able to detect, is now put in charge of making these decisions concerning a major international figure and businessman who is obviously very politically involved as well now, took over Twitter, freed it up for people like you, frankly, who had been banned for life. And I think that I really feel like that this was the way this whole thing went down, and rescinding entirely, not trying to craft any sort of compromise decision on the compensation package. Just after 6 years, essentially, this man built this company up to almost 10 times more than 10 times what its value was when he started. And his compensation that he expected and that had been vested over years is just completely rescinded. And I really think the Chancery Court, this decision is really striking a blow not for shareholders' rights, but against Delaware's interests in being the prime court of corporate law and corporate jurisprudence. This is the only reason that these major companies cite in Delaware, is because of that predictability with the corporate jurisprudence, with the Chancery Court. It's not because of any sort of tax. People think, it's some tax havens. It's not at all that. It's just, frankly, the institutional predictability, and they really have struck at least a dagger, I guess you could say, at least one dagger into the heart of that, which, by the way, drives 21% of the state's entire gross revenues on an annual basis. So they're really messing with the golden goose here with a decision like this, because Elon Musk announced, and has I can't blame him, that he is going to first of all, he said don't ever incorporate in Delaware, and then he also said he's going to take Tesla and completely remove it from Delaware and turn it into a Texas corporation. So I think this may feel good politically for people in the sort of the woke left or the supposedly anti-wealthy left, who think that they're these billionaires. They like the billionaires that fund them, like a Soros, but Tesla, who's Musk, who's an actual an honest-to-God entrepreneur and really a creator, someone who employs thousands upon thousands of people and has actually done something for the world. Well, he's just an evil, capitalist and businessman who's being paid too much for this company that he's built from nothing. So we'll see what happens, but I hope the Supreme Court of Delaware maybe finds better reasons to overturn this decision so that Elon Musk can first of all, have his compensation that he deserves, and secondly, so the state doesn't go down the tubes as people flee. He's a very influential individual, and I'd be concerned if I was in Delaware.
But Tyler, when you get right down, isn't this all politics? In other words, look at the incredible number now of federal investigations by this administration into Elon Musk. He had none of them until he reopened he reopened Twitter, now known as X, to the concept of free speech, and he unbanned people like myself, like Alex Jones, like others who are controversial. And he has very, very badly embarrassed the Democrats, specifically on the question of the claim that Hunter Biden's laptop had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, and banning even outlets like the New York Post from Twitter when they reported otherwise. Isn't this all politics?
Well, I'd like to say that, and it sure feels that way. But this suit was actually launched in 2018, so it's been ongoing for roughly 6 years. However, that doesn't mean that, someone with a partisan ulterior motive or, when it comes down to all things being equal is going to say, well, we're going to stick it to the guy who's not aligned with our political views or our partisan ideology. So, I can't say there's any indicia of that outright, but it sure is convenient. It sure is it seems like part of this larger slide of our judiciary across the board into just partisan retribution against people who challenge the current ruling regime, the Biden administration, and generally this notion of I hate to say it, a fascist government that we have where nobody has a right to speak out against it, and anybody who dares cross it, as you well know, is going to be targeted for persecution.
All right, folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Tyler Nixon here on The Roger Stone Show. When we come back, we're going to talk about the latest developments in the Georgia case against President Donald Trump and the incredible revelations about Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, as well as these recent developments in the federal January 6th case. We'll be right back.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
We're back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show, and I'm your host, Roger Stone. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Tyler Nixon, attorney at law, longtime Republican and conservative activist, a man who deeply understands not only the law, but also politics, the media, and how they operate. And Tyler, you have a new show on TNT Radio. I want to congratulate you on that. Tell us about that.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Well, as you know, Roger, having worked with you over the years on different radio broadcasts, and we had talked about maybe having a show together at some point, and I just sort of was looking for a platform, and TNT Radio, I've been working with them for a couple of years, and they have I know you've been a regular guest on there, and they're really an excellent network that's ramping things up with a really broad range of very interesting hosts, and they're 24/7. They're actually based out of Australia, but I have launched my show, which you can watch on TNTRadio.live at 2 p.m. Eastern on weekdays.
So it's net-based. I really find it fascinating. Folks who want to follow us can go to WABCRadio.com. And I, again, urge people to go to the app on your cell phone and download the 77 WABC Radio app, because whether it is Larry Kudlow or Cindy Adams or Dominic Carter or Frank Morano. You don't want to miss any of the great programming that we have here at 77 WABC. So if you unfortunately have to miss a show, you can go back and listen to it later. And as I said earlier, we're very proud of the fact that we're live streaming worldwide. Doesn't matter where you are. You can go to WABCradio.com and listen to us at any time. So please take advantage of it. But really, go to the App Store and download the 77 WABC Radio app. You'll be really glad that you did. All right, Tyler, the tsunami of lawfare against President Donald Trump doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all. A new NBC News national poll shows Trump pulling out to the largest lead he has had over Biden, now leading by 47 to 42 nationally. The generic ballot has Republicans over Democrats up 4 points, but simply leading 49-45, which is interesting in itself. These latest developments in Georgia, it's always seemed to me that all of these prosecutors, whether it's the case in South Florida, the so-called documents case, or whether it is the Fulton County case, or these two cases we've seen in New York City, one based around the valuation of his properties under a law in which no one has ever been prosecuted, in which there are no victims because Trump borrowed money and paid it back at handsome interest rates. Those who lent it to him made $40 million in interest on their loans. Or the equally ridiculous defamation case against a woman who I hope keeps giving interviews and talking because she undermines her own credibility every time she does that, who has claimed that she was raped by Donald Trump. The court felt that she was assaulted, did not find that she was raped, but she needs to keep talking because I think she really brings into question her own credibility. This is all about timing. They really want to put Donald Trump on trial someplace beyond these civil cases, which we've seen in New York, which have been enough of a drain, by the way, on his time and his resources. But they're desperate to put him on trial before the election. That's beginning to look less likely. I'm not prepared to crack open the champagne, but what's the latest out of Georgia with Fani Willis, the Fulton County prosecutor?
Well, Roger, I thought I'd seen it all, having lived through your persecution and, by your side, and all the skullduggery and unbelievable misconduct that I witnessed in the federal prosecutors on your case, as if that wasn't bad enough. But, what they're trying to do to Donald Trump is it's so bad, and it's such a cast of freaks, frankly, from this Engeron to Alvin Bragg to Fani Willis to Eugene Carroll as a plaintiff, and frankly, the rogue nut job and, in my view, completely illegitimate so-called special counsel Jack Smith. And the fact is that these people are corrupt to the core, and it's really showing in Georgia where these people are not only corrupt but arrogant in their power, where they think they can, she thinks she can get away with basically paying almost $1 million to her lover, essentially, and have him be this special prosecutor on the case, as if her team, as if the Fulton County prosecutor under her office are not sufficient. Like she needs to bring in outside help. It stinks to high heaven, and they think they ride under this cloud of privilege and that they're somehow can get away with it. But she's a complete hypocrite. I don't know if you're aware that they're unearthing now video or audio tapes. First of all, an audio tape of a whistleblower in her office has come out in which she alerted the whistleblower tried to alert Fani Willis to the fact that one of her main office, I think one of the lead people in her office, was talking about taking a $400,000+ federal grant and essentially blowing it on goodies and swag for themselves in the office, which is absolutely not what not what it's meant for. And so this whistleblower went to Fani Willis and said, he can't do this. He's going to be intent. He said that's what he's going to do. 56 days later, rather than fire this corrupt person on her staff, she fired the whistleblower. That's one example. And then, of course, another is there's a video come out of her when she ran for office saying that she was going to clean up the office and that no one should be having sex with their employees in the district attorney's office. I mean, you can't write that. You obviously can't make this stuff up. I mean, there's such hypocrites and such glaring hypocrites. Now, the problem is, I think, though, they've established enough with this sort of kangaroo process that, once you get past a certain point, it's difficult to just, overturn or to completely dismiss charges. So, the options in front of the Trump team and all the co-defendants, which is just outrageous. I mean, they drag the lawyers into court. It's really disgusting, fascist level stuff. But the problem is that, I don't think the judge, even if he were to remove Fani Willis from the case, or as she should be, frankly, removed from office, and Brian Kemp should step in for once in his life and do something right. But the problem is that the case will remain, and then who do you get after her? You might end up getting an actually legitimate, credible prosecutor who, even though the case is a bunch of garbage, will still nonetheless feel she has to vindicate it. So, I almost question whether keeping Fani on the case might be better, because it just reminds everybody what a corrupt bunch of nonsense it is, run by a, frankly, hypocritical, corrupt, self-dealing, practically criminal so-called DA.
But the underlying premise of the case is that Trump lost Georgia. There's a current pending federal lawsuit that brings that very much into question, where surprisingly a Democrat judge, Judge Stoltenberg, seems intent on getting to the truth about the last election. There's also a number of state litigations that are ongoing. I think most people see through this. I was kind of shocked. It appears to me that Fani Willis paid her personal injury attorney boyfriend, who's never prosecuted a complex RICO case, in fact, never been a prosecutor at all, $645,000. And that didn't come from the regular funding for her office, but came from federal funds that were earmarked, I've read, for COVID relief. You can't make this stuff up. And, of course, as soon as she's criticized, she immediately plays, let's just say it, the race card. You can't expect black women to do everything correctly, essentially what she said in church a couple weeks ago. You're right. You can't really make this stuff up. It's really extraordinary. All right. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Final point, the January 6th case has now been delayed. I don't think that's necessarily permanent, but this is your last shot at the ball. Tyler, what do you think about this announcement?
I think that's just a procedural thing where it is no longer in the purview of the court. Once it goes up to an appeals court, it's literally under the appeals court's docket. So it's actually, people are making too much of it. And by the way, watch for Ed Meese's brief. I think they could knock out all the entire federal juggernaut against Trump with his Jack Smith appointment, which is totally illegitimate.
It's a very interesting point. It's interesting to me that Trump's attorneys have not brought that particular action in any jurisdiction. As you know, that question was visited by the D.C. Appeals Court in the case of Robert Mueller. This was in connection with my case, but I think it was wrongly decided. This speaks to the question of whether the appointment of Jack Smith required congressional approval and so on. Anyway, we are out of time. I want to thank my guest, Tyler Nixon, and wish him very good luck on his new TNT radio show. And we'll get you back here at WABC sometime soon. Tyler, thank you for joining the Roger Stone Show.
Roger, thank you. An honor and a pleasure, my friend.